Hi everyone and welcome to today's Orchestrator meeting. We have a Ceph meetup in parallel, so which means that we're not going to have sales today, and we're also not going to have anyone who is listening to that Ceph meetup in parallel. But I don't think that's going to be a big problem. It's just that we have probably fewer topics that we can discuss today. There's a big elephant in the room at the policy cluster where we have access for the rest of this week here. I mean, I could give you a status update, or Adam, if you wanna give us a status update about what happened last week.
I haven't looked at as much this week since I got back PTO or vacation. But I think we're still dealing with the locking stuff. Like Sage is still trying to mess with those things. I know he was making a build last night, but from what I saw today, the manager has been up for 15 hours, so I don't think he's gotten a chance to put those new changes in. But I think the things we were trying to do is fix that locking stuff, and also I wanted that change with the agent to see if one, reducing the amount of work that it's doing whenever the agent reports makes a difference, and then also I wanted that logging extra stuff there so I could see how long it's taking the agent to get a response from the manager. But none of those things have gotten in yet because I think the build hasn't been able to make it onto the cluster yet. So waiting on that stuff.
Okay, yeah, you had Thanksgiving last week.
Yeah.
Other than that, so my big picture is that I'm pretty happy about what happened and what the state of the cluster right now is. At this point, I would like to make it available for other components. Unfortunately, not Rook because that's not a Kubernetes cluster. But I think Patrick wanted to have a look at it, and I don't know if others are also going to have a look at the cluster. Yeah, that's about pausing. Sarah, do we quickly want to discuss the Topo Lvm status? I mean, Sage isn't here, but we still. I think it still probably makes sense to just at least give a small status update, right?
Yeah, it sounds good. I thought since I haven't been able to make it for a couple of weeks, we could just update with the latest. So the discussion around, or that's in the notes there, that's linked for changing Topo Lvm design to incorporate raw devices and not just LVs. That's kind of stalled, no real update there. And so what we're working on for downstream for ODF is to have a separate solution basically for using LSO when we need it or Topo Lvm when we need it for LVs. And so when we're using Topo Lvm, we were using this project called Topo Lvm Operator. And one update there is that the Topo Lvm Operator, it actually isn't, or it's a different team, owned by a different team from the core Topo Lvm CSI driver folks. And the operator, it looked like we could just jump on board there and reuse that and contribute to it and improve it. And that was going well. But then the owners brought up that they have some longer term vision areas where they want to expand it to have more responsibility than just Topo Lvm. And so our long term was diverging, and we decided, okay, well, it's just time to decide to create a new operator to drive Topo Lvm. So that's the latest approach. We're going to have an operator, and hopefully it will become actually part of the Topo Lvm project instead of being a completely separate project from Topo Lvm. But we're still waiting for confirmation from the Topo Lvm folks that they're interested in bringing that into the kind of the Topo Lvm umbrella. And yeah, I think that's all the updates I have there.
Do we already have a project for that new operator?
Let's see, I'm still catching up from the holiday last week. I haven't seen the project, but I know there are a couple of people starting to work on it. They probably pushed it somewhere. I think they're starting to work in a downstream branch and then kind of put something together and propose to add it to the Topo Lvm project when it's a little further along.
Oh, okay.
Because for ODF, we do want to get this in for 4.10, which we have basically a month left for feature complete. So we need to move quickly on that.
Oh, a month for writing a complete operator is a bit ambitious.
Yeah, it'll be a basic operator. It'll get us started. And we have basically we're not started from scratch either, I guess. We have a lot that we learned already from the other Topo Lvm operator and all the other operators that we work on.
Okay.
So it is a bit tight for sure, but that's the goal.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, thank you, Travis, for that status update.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we don't have anyone else. We don't have for me or Joseph here in the call, so I would say we can just leave it as it is right now regarding Topo Lvm and the Rook topic in general, except if there is anyone else here who has any thoughts on it. Okay, perfect. Yeah, then thank you, Travis. And then I think we can move on. We have in the orchestrator we have a thing that's called a placement spec, which is used for two different for two different occurrences. One is to place daemons, and the other one is to select hosts, and we are mixing those. So the placement specification that we have for placing daemons consists of things like if you want to allow co-located daemons, or how many daemons you want to have in general, and the other use case is it's just a plain selection of hosts by labels or by pattern, and it feels weird to have both being used at the same time in the context of host selection. So using the complete placement specification in the context of selecting hosts is weird. Do we want to change things, or do we just want to keep on going and just accept that we have some additional properties that we are not going to make use of? Any thoughts? Adam, I think that that relates to one of the pull requests from you, right? That was regarding selecting or filtering the host list.
Yeah, they wanted to filter and have like the counts for the host LS because it was useless at scale if you just had every single host listed every time. But we were talking yesterday that it didn't make sense to maybe use a placement spec for that because then you'd have options like count and things, which make no sense in that instance.
Mm. I- Is there a need for us to kind of split this up into two different data structures, or can we keep it that way? Doesn't seem to be an important topic, I guess. And yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else we can discuss today? Otherwise, it's going to be a very short meeting.
Do you want to
Yeah,
talk about?
Sebastian, I'd like to bring up something if I can. So, is that right?
Yeah, Ceph, please.
All right. Based on our Pawsey experience, I mean, based on the scale issues we did find, I know we did some patching and some fixing. I mean, do we have thoughts on what we need to put as a longer term, um, architectural fixes, changes, things that we want to do? I mean, should we start listing those before maybe the end of January and make sure we flesh them out really well? Um, what do you think?
It would be great to have a long-term vision about large-scale testing and large-scale performance verification.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Okay.
What I find fascinating is that this hasn't really happened for the whole history of Ceph, even though Ceph is supposed to be very good at large-scale clusters. And it is actually. So, is there any reason why we haven't implemented this kind of testing in the past already, Jeff?
That's a really good question. I think it's a lot depends on upstream. A lot of our upstream vendors that basically, have been utilizing this. I mean, a lot of those big vendors aren't utilizing Ceph ADM as we move forward, right? I mean, we're learning that as well, so they're not going to run into the same scale issues potentially with the orchestration layers, right? I mean, so overall, so I don't know. It's a good question, and but again, I think we've learned enough that we probably should have some, work items moving forward on our list, right? For Ceph ADM and orchestration in general. I mean, yes, no, and if so, maybe we
No,
just articulate those, make sure we're very clear on what those are, what we know so far, so we can make sure we don't, lose them moving forward.
it's not only Ceph ADM, it's also the Prometheus Manager module.
Absolutely,
It
yeah.
just really was never working in this scale, at that level of scale.
Understood.
Then we have the progress module, which also really failed at larger clusters. And one of the recommended solutions is to just disable the progress module. So it's not just the orchestration that is failing. We previously didn't have the ability to schedule large-scale tautology suites because the scheduler of tautology just wasn't capable enough in order to have proper functional clusters with more than 4 hosts. So the big suite that Sage right now was working on with 70 hosts was just not possible to schedule. Previously, we had to completely clean the tautology queue and then schedule this big suite. And then after that was finished, we had to restart the tautology queue again. So that was just not possible. So, which means that by now we at least have some kind of an idea of how to even start testing on at least 70 hosts. Does it make sense to run performance tests? Definitely. Do we have anything that could be considered as a performance test in tautology regarding the management and orchestration? Not that I know of. No, definitely there is nothing.
Probably not. Yeah. Yeah. So.
Nothing makes sure that the progress module works on large scale clusters. Nothing makes sure that the Prometheus module works. Nothing makes sure that Ceph
Yeah,
works.
yeah. Well, I really think we should, like I said, create this backlog and list of things that we really have to start addressing moving forward in. And I think we already have a few things. I know, and but I think we should just make sure it's complete based on our experience. So recent
Yeah,
experience.
at least we could have a look at the 70 host cluster that we have in
Yep.
in Tautology.
And even understanding which things, from the point of view of scale of linear versus, nonlinear, and trying to figure out, we can base a lot just on the linear assumptions on a smaller scale. Well, the opportunity of what we had was, unusual, and unfortunate that it is unusual. But we have to figure out how to get around that and figure out these scale related questions, independent of having real hardware, I guess. It makes it a little tougher, but I mean, I'm sure there are ways we can do that, right? And I challenge us to, at least give it a try.
Right now, we don't even have the framework in place in order to run virtual machines on Tautology in order to have even more hosts available for the cluster.
Yeah.
So, for example, running 10 VMs on each host would mean that we have, or at least 5 VMs on each host would mean that we have 5 times 70 hosts available to test on. That depends on how much effort we want to invest into tautology when it comes to large scale and scalability testing. Previously, there was not really much going on in regards to adding new functionality to tautology when it comes to these kind of extended use cases. We could ask or talk to Josh, who is right now looking into adding more functionality to tautology. Isn't there a testing weekly? Indeed, there is a testing weekly going on Wednesdays, noon Eastern time. Jeff, do you want to join this meeting and then maybe have a look at if there is a need for performance testing?
On Wednesday, I don't even see it on my calendar. It's
in the Ceph community calendar.
Which I do have, I believe. I mean, so let me just if it's there, yes. Yeah, I have Ceph community. I don't see it this Wednesday, the 1st, believe it or not. You said at noon.
Eastern time.
Tautology Weekly, that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I can go this week and I can bring this topic up and
I don't know if this week is going to be a good week to talk about it because there is a Ceph Developer Monthly happening in parallel. So, which means that probably everyone that would be at the Tautology Weekly is instead going to join the Ceph Developer Monthly. But the week afterwards would be a great idea, I guess. Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, I was going to say before, do we want to bring up HANFS stuff again in this meeting?
Indeed. Thank you, Adam. But Sage isn't here.
Yeah.
But again, Sage won't be at the next one either, right? So we have to talk about it. Correct? Sage is done as a Friday, so he won't be at the next meeting.
No,
is this Friday his last official day, or when is it?
His last official day, I believe, is the following week on Friday, but he's taking vacation.
Oh,
Oh,
So
okay.
he's out this Friday, I guess, because I talked to him yesterday about some other things, and I just asked him when his last day was, and so I got lucky. I'm glad I told him I'm glad I didn't wait till next week, as I think his original announce at the end of next week was his official, but
hmm.
he's saying Friday this week, so
It's imminent.
yeah,
It's imminent. Yeah.
yes it is.
So Adam, wanna bring forward your question you had. Maybe we can crowdsource the information.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess it's kind of hard without Sage here because the question was going to be about what are the HANFS use cases and what triggers currently exist, do things like that. Because Sage is supposed to implemented something about it before, and we weren't sure um, what triggers failovers right now, what we need to be looking for, and I guess we need to define like what cases we need to actually take action in. Like so, I think we were saying before, like say system D should be covering the case where the NFS individually goes into an error state by restarting it. But like what other cases do we need to be worried about to make all this work?
One thing is probably that if a host goes offline, I don't think this case is handled at this point.
Yeah. So that's the one we definitely need to do. And is there any other ones we need to be worried about?
I can't think of any.
Yes, yes.
If
How we also need to make sure that we fence it, right? If the service comes back up in the node that that went offline.
it is fenced because we are deleting the Ceph key.
Okay.
So the failover is something really explicit. So we are deleting the old Ceph key, and I think we are redeploying the new NFS Ganesha daemon, right, Adam? Or what do you know what we are actually doing when doing the failover?
I haven't looked much at the actual failover code. I said our tautology tests around this, we're only testing specifically us manually starting or stopping and then starting the daemon and also removing a daemon entirely. There were no real cases for anything like this where we're actually doing a proper failover, what I could tell. I'm not sure exactly what it does. I need to look at it.
Hmm. But I think the failover code doesn't happen in the code path that is executed, like Ceph or daemon stop, but it's executed in the following up code that takes over when the state change of a particular daemon happens. So we are properly executing or exercising the code path for the failover. It's just that the failover is being triggered pretty manually and explicit. So everything should be in place as far as I know, or as far as I assess it right now, Adam. Except for if a host gets offline. I don't think this case is handled properly.
Okay, so you're saying for the stopping case, you think it's already handled?
Yeah, I think so. It should be handled. If you're stopping the systemd unit manually, it should be handled properly because it should be using the very same code path.
All right, I'll have to look more at the actual code, what it does, because I didn't even know if that case was handled. I wasn't sure what was done. But yeah, definitely need to implement the offline one. And I guess you have to maybe get in touch with Sage and ask about the other parts you're talking about right now. Maybe you can explain it to me.
Okay. Offline local fencing in place. Yeah. It's a bit of a pity that NFS Ganesha doesn't really support native HA, but you have to actually invest a lot of work in order to make NFS Ganesa do proper failovers. Make things a bit complicated. And I think it's also being done in Kubernetes, if I'm not mistaken. So in Kubernetes, we are using the Kubernetes scheduler to deploy a new NFS Ganesha gateway on a different host. I think that's how it is implemented. And we're just hoping that Kubernetes scheduler is fast enough.
Yeah, I think that's correct for what it's worth, and I also have not really dived into the failover behavior of NFS on Kubernetes to make sure that it is like that it actually works for NFS and that it's not just like a, we hope and assume this works.
Is there any guarantee of how fast the Kubernetes scheduler reschedules failed pods?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. I think like generally it's like within 5 minutes or 15 minutes, but
NFS clients, yes, please explain.
Oh, I think it generally happens faster than that. I don't know if there are any like guarantees.
Okay. So, Adam, do you know what the time budget was? Was it a minute or so?
I thought Sage said 90 seconds.
Or 90 seconds? Yeah. So 90 seconds, and within those 90 seconds, you have to get the new NFS Ganesha daemon up to speed. Okay. Adam, I don't think that we're going to be able to come up with any more answers as of today without Sage here at this point.
Yeah, okay, we'll have to get in touch with them today or later this week.
Yeah, we are going to have the stand-ups for the rest of the week, so that should be good.
So Adam, you can extract Sage's knowledge in this area, then you'll be our expert moving forward.
Yeah.
Challenge, huh?
Failover expert.
Yeah, exactly.
We have Jeff Layton.
Yes, we have others. I'm just kidding you when I say that. So,
and even for Ceph we have Mike Fritsch, who was unfortunately also not here today, but he also had has done a lot of work when it comes to NFSHA.
Mike is here.
Huh, Mike? Okay. I guess that's about it for NFSHA. Any other topics? Perfect. Daniel. We can't hear you.
How about now?
There.
Right?
Yeah. Now it works.
Awesome. So this is my last week at Red Hat. So same with Ceph. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for all the help with everything that I've gotten over the past 2 years and everything. So thank you. I guess that's about it.
Yeah. Thank you, Daniel. It was a pleasure to work with you. And it was nice to have you working at Ceph from actually close inception of Ceph It was it already 2 years ago? I don't know. Anyway, thank you, Daniel.
Roughly 2 years, yeah.
For everything you've contributed to Ceph And I guess that's about it for today.